everyone, Steph here, and this is the start of the final Mary Gentry reading vlog. I have 3 books left. I'm going to read Swallowing Darkness tonight, and we're going to get this finishing off a series underway. If you have not seen my other videos so far in this series, I have been rereading the Mary Gentry series by Laurell Hamilton, which is a paranormal romance why choose story featuring Fae, and it came out years and years ago. I read a good chunk of the series. I'm not entirely certain if I read Swallowing Darkness. This could be the first of the new books for me. Could not be as well. I literally can't remember. But I've been rereading it and really enjoying the experience. And because there are 9 books in the series, I have done one video with the first 3 books, a second video with the second 3 books, and now we are going to be concluding the last 3 books in the series. And I am very excited to see where this goes because, as I said, I have zero memory of where I stopped and what could potentially be in here. I am suspecting that this is the first of the new books because I cannot remember anything after the events of the last book, except for the fact that I know that Mary had triplets. And that's the end of the story. Like, that's not a spoiler. I mean, this book series is old, so if it's a spoiler, I'm sorry, but this entire series of vlogs is a spoiler. As with the other videos, I will stop every so often as I'm reading. I'm excited to get into this. So hopefully this vlog will be out fairly soon. It is the start of August when I'm reading this. Well, it's like the 9th of August. So we'll see when this vlog actually goes live. Alright, so please excuse the sounds of laundry in the background because it's a Friday night and I'm doing laundry while reading. I am 100 pages into Swallowing Darkness and I may have read this one. I don't know. I remember the bit at the beginning of the book. So at the end of the last book, Mary was taken by her uncle Tyrannus, who is the king of the Sealy court, and while she was there he raped her. And so at the start of this book she is in hospital because they managed to get her out, and everyone is very, very concerned about upsetting her because she's obviously been through a trauma and she's in hospital and she's pregnant, or she's only just found out that she's pregnant. And so Galen brings her grandmother, who is a brownie, but what we quickly find out is that her gran has been spelled by her cousin in the Sealy court, not her cousin Kel, who is also trying to kill her. Her cousins are not very nice. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes down in the hospital. Doyle and Galen and Reese and Sholto are all there, and so Mary's grandmother is killed. Doyle is very seriously injured, and so is Sholto, but Mary is able to help Sholto, and in doing so calls the Wild Hunt and basically calls for justice against her cousin. And so that's where we are. We've just gone back to the Sealy court and inflicted some justice, and now they are off to see if they can try and save Mistral, who is one of the other guards, because the Sealy court have set a trap for him, and that is 100 pages. So we shall keep reading. Okay, so a lot happened in the second 200 and nearly 300 pages. Yeah, this is over 400 pages. I think after the last time I updated you, there is a section where they are back in the land of the Slough, which is apparently the only fairy kingdom that votes in their rulers. So Mary was voted queen, and you know, Sholto was very happy about that. Again, always in these, like, these are the ultimate why choose stories. It is very much a relationship between Mary and all of the men, and the men themselves, like, they, for most of them, particularly Frost and Doyle, like, they have worked together for a very long time. They've known each other for thousands of years, right? So they actually have a really close friendship. And it's funny because whenever the media interview any of them, they're always making assumptions that the men are in a relationship as well. And all they do is they respond with, yeah, of course I love him. He's like, I've known him for 1,000 years, which I actually really love that dynamic because it doesn't bother anyone else that that's what humans and outsiders see as their relationship. It doesn't make a difference to what's going on in their relationship. But anyway, so they spend some time with the Slough, and then the Sealy are trying to get Mary back, and so she calls on the humans to step in and save her, because if the humans are involved, the Fae or the She have to kind of step back, because engaging in a war with humans is cause for them being exiled from America. Then once they are finally, you know, being evacuated from Fairy to go back to Los Angeles, Kel has his next bout of insanity and attacks everyone. So there's a lot of fighting, a lot of blood, a lot of gore, a lot of death, a lot of healing. Ash and Holly finally get their moment with Mary in this one. So they're half she, half goblin twins who have had a very antagonistic relationship with Mary, but in this case they are the conduit through which Mary is able to give magic back, or hands of power magic back to the goblins, and it also forces the final confrontation between Mary and Kel, and we all know who comes out on top in that little battle. And it is every bit gross and disturbing as any time Mary uses her hands of flesh and hands of blood, because gross. And Mary and Doyle are chosen by the goddess and the god to become the new king and queen of the Unseelie court, but they turn it down because it gives them a chance to save Frost. And that is where we end in this one. Like the first part of this book, I remembered when I started reading it. I remembered the stuff at the start. I don't remember the second half of the book. So maybe this was a case of I got partway through this book and then never finished it.
Yeah. What can I say? When you hear me talk about the next book, you're just going to roll your eyes at me.
So stay tuned. I'll be updating you guys on what's the next book. Next one is Divine Misdemeanors is the next one. Hello everyone. We are back with the next installment of this vlog, which is Divine Misdemeanors. And I am going to be frantically trying to finish this vlog this week because I need a video for Friday. So we're going to jump into this because as soon as I finish reading this, I have to do a whole bunch of work. And I don't want to be up till midnight doing it. So, Divine Misdemeanors it is. Should I do my work first? Probably. Am I going to? Absolutely not. I am 100 pages into Divine Misdemeanors, and this one, so it starts off Mary and her court, her men are in exile back in LA, and so she's back to being a detective. She's still pregnant, and the book opens where she's at a crime scene with Detective Lucy Tate, who has been sort of an ally through some of the books, and there is a murder of some of the demi-fae, and it's been staged to look like a children's story. So Mary's been called in just to consult because she's a fae. In an effort to warn the demi-fae that, you know, someone might be targeting them, she goes to let them know it'll look like a tea shop, and there she discovers that there is a witness, and the witness is hysterical and is borderline losing the plot completely. And then in walks Gilda, who is the good witch, who is apparently a human who somehow gained some fae abilities, like Glinda, right? The good witch, whatever, the good fairy or the fairy godmother or whatever it is. And then through all of this, Mary, Frost and Doyle get mobbed by the paparazzi, and there's also a creature, and I'm gonna totally butcher this, Fear Dog, I think. Could totally be butchering that. Anyway, like literally the stuff of nightmares, and he's just asked Mary to sort of give him back power, but he was also threatened a human police officer in the same breath. So yeah, anyway, I'm gonna keep reading. So I finished Divine Misdemeanors. I know I've said this with every book that I've read. I genuinely don't know if I've read this before or not. It seems very familiar, and yet other parts really don't seem familiar at all. But I remember all of the main things in this, like the fact that basically Mary has to put Wurrundjeri back in his place, because there's a lot of people involved now, and now that Mary is living in Los Angeles and she's taken a lot of the fae with her, and they're, you know, creating new Sithens and all that sort of stuff, there are a lot of people around her, and we know that she has a lot of, you know, her men, her guards, and you know, the fathers of her unborn children, etc. I think I read this book. Clearly I just can't trust early 20s Steph at all, because I don't remember anything from that time. Clearly not. Anyway, this one was really interesting. It's kind of that murder mystery about, you know, why the demi-fae are being killed and who's behind them, and, you know, some unhinged fae, essentially, and, you know, equally unhinged humans as per usual. And then the rest of it is a lot of group dynamics and relationship dynamics between everyone else, because of course you're going to need to go into that. And I think what's also interesting is a lot of the exploration of how everyone's powers are evolving over time, because as Mary is giving people back, giving, you know, members of the she back some of their old abilities, things are manifesting in different ways. I think it's really interesting that Galen's powers are evolving more so than anyone else's, and maybe even Reese's. Honestly, they're two of my favorite characters. Now, I think I've said before, Frost was one of my favorite characters originally when I first read it. Now, I'm like, Galen and Reese, they have such an interesting relationship with Mary in the fact that they are both in love with her from before she left the court, and are still in love with her, and they know that they're not top of her list of affections. And even though she loves everyone, you know, there's a ranking order and people that are kind of dearer to her. And same thing with Sholto. Like, he's not in it as much as I remember. Like, his character is the one that I remember most vividly. Maybe it's just because he was the more monstrous of them originally. But him and Galen and Rhys, hands down my favorite characters. I just think they're the most interesting in terms of the way that they interpret situations, and Galen has probably had the best evolution of his character arc. Oh, that's my phone telling me to go to bed. I still haven't done my work. Anyway, his character growth and his character arc has been better because he's actually grown and learnt a lot, and he's realized that people completely underestimate him and assume that he doesn't know what's going on. And there's moments all the time in this book and in the last couple of books where he's said something and people are like, Galen said that, and I love him for it. I really do. Anyway, they solved the murder, they wrapped it up, etc, etc. The next book's the last one, so we might just try and knock this out of the park tomorrow. It is the next day. It has been a very long day. I don't even know what the time is. I haven't eaten dinner. I'm currently doing laundry. It is 7:45 and I have not started A Shiver of Light, but I will be reading it tonight. So they're close to 400 pages of it. So as soon as I have had dinner, I'm going to get started on this one. I still cannot decide whether I have read the previous book or if it's just a plot line that was very predictable. I legitimately have no idea. I do know I have not read this one. I 100% know that I didn't read it because I'd stopped reading the books before this one came out. So this is at least a 100% brand new to me book. So that's exciting. And also this is the one that has the awesome author photo on the back. No one does author photos like this anymore. I mean, why not? Why not have some fun with it? Yeah, we'll be concluding the Mary Gentry series tonight, and that's exciting. So I will check in after I've read maybe about 100 pages. All right, so I am 127% of the way in. This is going to be rough trying to finish this tonight. I'm going to try though. It is really interesting. So the first part of the book, Mary has just found out that she's having triplets, not twins, and then she has the babies. That's very quick at the start of the book. And there's still a bit of a question around the genetic mix of the babies and who's, you know, fathering which particular child. Two of them are quite strong, healthy. The third one is just younger developmentally, and so it's a bit smaller, but has magnificent glamour, which is a problem for a baby because babies have no self-control. And a big part of it is them coming home and then trying to negotiate what kind of visitation rights the extended family are going to have, like the Queen of the Unseelie Court and the King of the Seelie Court, who is trash but apparently still thinks that he has claim over Mary's children. So we've just had the meeting with Mary's aunt, so that's where we're up to, and I'm going to keep reading. It's really enjoyable, and it has just honestly cemented Galen and Rhys and Sholto as my favorite characters. I'm just very invested in their storyline and sort of what they bring to the relationship. All right, it is the next day. I have finally finished A Shiver of Light, and this book is really interesting. It is probably my least favorite of all of the books, and not that it was bad, but it did it explored some things that I found really fascinating, a lot of really interesting relationships, and then it did a whole bunch of stuff that I absolutely bloody hate, because this book probably had the best exploration of Mary's relationship with Galen, Sholto, and Rhys. Mistral really doesn't get a lot of airtime in the entire series. It's kind of his initial interactions with Mary over a couple of books. Frost and Doyle get a lot of airtime, etc. But it's made really clear through the whole series that Mary is, you know, fully besotted by Frost and Doyle, and that's fine. Like that's her main sort of relationship and the two people that she deeply loves, and she loves everyone else, but it's not the same kind of love. Totally fine. Polyamorous relationship, the relationship dynamics are different for everyone. Galen and Rhys are in love with Mary, and I think over the last couple of books, even though it comes across at times I think as a little bit petulant and whiny, and I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way, because Rhys does bring it up, because of everyone, Rhys is the most deeply affected by the fact that Mary doesn't love him as much as he loves her. And it doesn't stop him from loving her, and it doesn't stop him from loving the babies, and it doesn't stop him from protecting her and wanting to be around her. But it's just something that he feels, and he does bring it up, and fair enough. Like that's a conversation you have to have, right? Galen as a character has grown so much since the first book, and so the way he feels and the way he has grown, like that story is great. And then there's Sholto, who I think the scenes that we got between Mary and Sholto in this book, because they're the only two that are actually married, so they were handfasted by the goddesses, King and Queen of the Slough. It's a marriage, but it doesn't have to be a love match, and they don't have to be in love to be the King and Queen. They can just co-rule, right? And Mary was never intending to rule the Slough, because that was Sholto's thing. and he knew that he couldn't leave his people, so he doesn't live with them in Los Angeles, but he visits her whenever he can. And their scenes are great because their relationship has built over time. And again, he loves her, but he knows that she's not in love with him, and he's not even really in love with her. Like they've both agreed on that. And that dynamic is probably the most even of the three that are sitting sort of in that bracket. And I find their conversations really, really interesting, particularly in this book. And then this next bit is a massive spoiler. I'm going to put spoiler on the screen. I'll timestamp it, so jump ahead if you do not want to know. Sholto is killed. What the F? What? This is my face. I was expecting it to be a ruse to try and get Tyrannus and whatever. No, he's dead. He's shot. Rather unceremoniously, in my opinion. Me? Not happy. Not happy at all. So spoilers off. That disappointed me. But then also it feels like the ending is just very rushed. Like it's the last book, we're gonna wrap it up and it's gonna be done. And so a lot of it is just a lot of telling rather than showing, and that's just kind of disappointing. In my head, I'll just, make up that things did not end this way. Like there's so much that even if it was like a bonus epilogue kind of thing where we just got more information about the three babies, who are still babies at this point. Like by the last chapter is where we're told who the actual parents are. Like we kind of get hints at who is the parent of which child, etc. And there is so much about Tegan Rose, or her name starts out as Bree. Like all of the kids manifest their magic very, 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 very early. And so we know they're going to be powerful. They're always going to be powerful. But so much is made of the fact that she has the ability to compel people just by looking at them, and she's a baby, so she can't control that. But nothing is done about it. Like it just is what it is. And I think that's the most disappointing thing, is just sometimes I think it needs another book. Well, not even another book, like a novella, just to wrap things up. Because there's even things around, Mary has brought magic back to the Western lands in America, and like they've been living in Maeve's house. Reese gets his own Scythen, but we're never there. I would have loved to have been there. That would have been great. But what happens? What happens next? Like it doesn't, and I don't expect that Mary, creates a new Scythen of her own or a new court or anything like that. But it would have just been nice for them to have their own place and for it to feel settled as the ending of the series. Like there were things in here that I really loved. And I don't want people to think that I totally, it's turned me off the series. It hasn't. There's a lot of things in the series that I absolutely loved, and everything that we got with all of the characters, including what happened. I mean, what happened to the character annoyed me, but everything leading up to that, it was really, really good. It's just like they got to here and then went, oh bugger, we have to wrap this up, and we wrapped it up in this many pages. I hate it when series do that. Final thoughts on rereading the series. I'm so glad I did it. Like I've had so much fun going back to all these characters, putting things back into perspective, like just realigning what I remembered about the series and where it was. And I mean, I have talked very briefly to Heather about it, particularly in this last vlog, and I think she's still laughing at me for my reactions to the series, especially when I can't remember where I stopped reading in the series originally. It's been fun, and I think they will be books that I go back to. Probably not this one, but other books in the series, because there are some really cool things. And yes, they're old school, and yes, you get paragraphs and paragraphs of descriptions of characters, what they look like and what they're wearing and whatever. That's a very much an old school paranormal kind of thing, and very much a Laurell K. Hamilton thing from what I gather. But then you have really interesting conversations around politics and court politics, and interspersing old world and new world kind of things. Like there's so many good things in here, and like you can see where the nods are to this series in more recent sort of Fae stories. Overall, really good experience. Could have done without the ending, but everything else really, really good, and a really good opportunity to go back to something that was probably formative for me, like something that I read but wouldn't realize the implication of what I'd read until much later on, like 10 years later, how much that has informed my reading taste as an adult. Thanks for watching. I don't really know how to end this off. Like it's been a ride. It's been a ride. It's taken me a long time to get here. So we're finally done. That's one project ticked off. Yay! I'm really excited. And now I can get back to my regularly scheduled reading. So thanks for watching. Feel free to chat to me about the series down below if you have read up to the last book. I'd love to know your feelings on the ending. Feel free to let me know down below. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't leave a comment, feel free to leave a light source emoji, so any kind of emoji that is a source of light. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you're on the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.